Okay, I'm going to do another one of these videos that I just did like yesterday, only this time we're going to be on Liberty Talk News, okay? Talking about David Eby, who is the premier of this province because John Horgan stepped down. David Eby has the history of advocating for the east side of Vancouver, which is one of the poorest districts in all of Canada and has a high population of drug addicts and disenfranchised people, with a large majority of those people being of Native American, Native Canadian, Aboriginal, okay, descent. Now, so what's the date today? Today is January 8th, 2022. So back in the day when Uncle John got medically kidnapped, all right, and I was trying to, look for a lawyer to do pro bono to help me with what I was trying to do at that time, which was basically a lawsuit to get the attention of the government to get fast and quick results. Okay? Of course I went to the pro bono at the Supreme Court of Canada, and that was just a bunch of runaround and, just whatever, right? Because the cards are stacked against the poor people, okay? That office at the Supreme Court of Canada was more concerned about protecting the government than it was about protecting the public. So through my travels, I got wind of where David Eby, as a lawyer, a community activist, quote-unquote lawyer, was advocating for poor people and their rights, blah, blah, blah. Maybe contact his organization, to which I don't know the name, but we might hear, well, we will hear, okay? This will be confirmed, because we're going to listen to this, and then I'll stop and play and talk and just give you my opinion on it, okay? Because what's happened is, since David Eby has been in Parliament as a premier to this province, Adrian Dix, to which I don't necessarily think is 100% with human DNA. I just don't, okay? I don't care what you think, all right? Just because of what I've seen. All right. Anyway, I guess he's bringing in some bill called Bill C-36 that is mandating that every healthcare worker in the province of British Columbia, Canada, needs to be inoculated with the inoculations that are coming down through the pipeline. Okay, not only that, but if they speak out against it in any type of capacity, whether it's in a public forum or whether it's a one-on-one with their patients, they can be fined up to $200,000 and go to jail for 6 months for breaking the silence, right? I guess, right, and they will be fired. Okay. So with that said, and then there's other things within C-36 legislation that branches off to that, assisted suicide crap that the government is enforcing. But they're not bringing it in, people. They're starting to enforce it, because once you start coercing people to kill themselves or get them to accept themselves, or get them to accept that they're going to kill themselves, like Sierra coming here, Mom, I'm not going to be around much longer. What do you mean you're not going to be? Where are you going? Well, I just won't be here. I'm leaving. You'll never see me again. What do you think? She was being coached, people. She was being coached to be dead by the very people who lured her to her death and then stood over her and recorded it for their records as they when you, oh, geez, I don't know, my memory's going on with these eye drops. My memory is just, flogging. As they're flogging, you have something and you kind of whipping at somebody on their back and shit, right? Their bare back, you're flogging it. You're not whipping it, but you're flogging it, right? They're flogging the family out on the steps with a 6'7" fucking baby face cop, okay, in the rain, as they're preventing us to go inside to identify our loved one. All right? Anyway, this guy, David Eby, is supposed to advocate against that in terms of human rights. That's why he was elected within the Parliament buildings to represent. Well, I think he lives in Point Grey, which is one of the, in terms of a smart city, one of those smart cities in British Columbia, Canada, that is extremely wealthy in comparison to maybe White Rock. Okay? That's where this guy lives, right? That's where a lot of these politicians live that become premiers and this type of thing. Okay, so anyway, I guess there's a big kerfuffle going on now because, you know, as politicians do, they brought in this legislation, B36, to which, from my understanding, has been passed. And it's very draconian, even though it's being brought under a new democratic ideology, which is supposed to be for the people. But clearly this is not what this is about. This is about government control. And so through Liberty Talk, Odessa, she's doing an interview with a bunch of people that are trying to set up a recall of him to get another election, to bring in another premier, with the hope that that premier will be putting the brakes on this legislation that is very detrimental not only to the citizens of British Columbia, Canada, and their ethical healthcare workers, but because BC is being used to set precedents with certain things. If this, whatever it is that the government is trying to do, continues on for any length of time, then they're going to try and implement it all across Canada and into other countries outside of their jurisdiction under that UN agenda and World Health Organization and all those types of organizations to, you know, bring in that one world order, people. So, you know, I'm like, well, should I talk about this? Because, you know, it's right in my backyard. You know, it affects me directly because I tried to contact David Eby back in the day when they medically kidnapped Uncle John. And the organization, it was like they were lawyers that were advocating for the people on the east side of Vancouver with all the travesties that were, you know, being perpetrated against them, right? My response with that organization was twofold. One, I didn't live in Vancouver, quote unquote, on the east side, so therefore, you know, they really couldn't fit me in. And two, I didn't have, and Uncle John didn't have Native heritage. So that, you know, kind of pushed us out, right? It was the natives going through the door first that lived in the neighborhood that got all the help. Anybody else was a no-go. So, okay, I let it go, people. I tried it, just like I tried the pro bono in the Supreme Court of Canada downtown. I tried, you know, the legal aid, just whatever. None of it worked. That's why I did it for myself. Okay, so now we're going to go, and that was in 2015 when they medically kidnapped John in January. Okay, so, you know, through that process, this guy ended up getting elected to be a MLA, I guess for Point Grey, but he came in on a NDP foot, which is supposed to be for the people, all people, you know, rich or poor, and you know, he was supposed to be a justice warrior, an advocate for justice, where justice needed to be cemented, right? You know what I'm saying? Okay. And now all of a sudden he's a premier because John Horgan stepped down. But he's just a figure to move the agenda along, to which Adrian Dix and Bonnie Henry, a.k.a. Dr. God, Dr. Death, whatever she is to you, are coming in with the agenda. So they come in with the agenda, they pass it over to the premier, and the premier puts down his John Henry. Okay? So, anyway, these people have taken the time to read the legislation. It's fairly large from my understanding. It's quite encompassing, and it's very dangerous Because the first thing you have to remember about legislation is it's only written for the government and the government employees' benefit. It's not written for the people, okay? This is what my videos, my family's life story has taught us, okay? It doesn't matter what you do. They're going to ignore the legislation when it's up in their face and they're being held to account. And they will find by any means necessary ways to derail you from holding them to account. Okay? Because they're tricksters. Right? That's the agenda is not to protect the Uncle Johns in the community. The agenda is not to protect the Sierras, okay, or the Chamays, or the Amaris, or the Andres. That's no, the Andre, Chamay, Amari, Sierra, Uncle John, they were just the tool for the government to do what the government wanted to do, or wants to do. Okay, so anyway, when I filed my lawsuit the third time against the Attorney General's office and the Public Safety and Solicitor Attorney General's office, okay, we know what happened. They turned it into a, I don't know what it was, kangaroo court through MS Team, and falsified records, ignored the evidence, accused me of shit that wasn't even had anything to do with me in terms of their case law, and tried to make it sound like it was me, the individual within that case law, and therefore, because that was me, the judge had to base their decision on that case law versus looking at the evidence that I presented and whatnot, right? Just to avoid being held to account to their legislation. Although they're still using their legislation to control the narrative by just doing it again the next time it's in front of a so-called judge, to which I don't believe these individuals are judges. I don't believe Judge Ross is a legitimate judge, because what he did was completely wrong. Not to mention those other bozos sitting up with their dismiss shit, okay? And then go back and falsify their own transcripts to cover up their lies as they continue to falsely accuse you of shit. Okay? So I don't know what these people are expecting in terms of, I understand what they're trying to do by recalling David Eby and having him step down with the hope of maybe getting a new premier that will be more proactive to not injure their constituency based on experiments and that type of thing, you know, just, okay? Like, this is YouTube, right? So, you know, sometimes I just have to trip over my words, right? And even then, that can come at any time, right? Amari could just start giggling and be happy, and who knows? Like, seriously, like, I'm so sick of fucking YouTube, you don't know. But at the end of the day, you know, after all these years, right? That's what they want to do. They want to silence you. They want you fucking locked up like a dirty secret so they can slap you around and do what they want with you. And that's the point of this C-36. The deeper that the entrenches go, right? Where they can say, no, you can't do this and you can't do that, but you have to do, no, you can't identify Sierra's body, even though she's not even 5 feet away from you. But we're going to stand there and mock you in front of your face as we go in and out, right? And then tell you something that we think you want to hear just so that you'll go away. And then when you do go away and you come back and I, myself and my family find out that you lied to us because you were just looking to sneak out the body by any means necessary so you could cut it open and get those freaking organs, because that's what happened to Sierra, people, and then make it illegal where I can't have an independent autopsy to prove that point so that I can always look stupid in terms of, well, she's just a rambling idiot. Why would they steal the organs? They have no need. Sierra was a drug addict. Yeah, Sierra was a drug addict, but she was also locked up in the justice system for months on end in solitary confinement as they were preparing to release her and then lure her to her death, as they've already psychologically convinced her to do it, people. Because she told me, I'm not coming back. I'm like, what do you mean you're not? Where are you going? And then her mind would just kind of go into something else. And, you know, well, she was right. She wasn't coming back because she was prepped for it, people. She was prepped by the handlers in the community. Okay, and it wasn't no freaking drug addict that prepped her to have her freaking gutted like a fucking cow. Because you know they ran off and did their independent autopsy. Yeah, their forensic autopsy. That's why I never got a police report yet to this day. With their fake investigation. That's what they're building in with these bills, like Bill C-36. It's enough that you don't allow doctors in the province of British Columbia, Canada, to do independent autopsies. But now you're telling them that they can't say nothing other than what it is written down for them to say? Who wants to go see a doctor when the doctor can't think for him or herself? When the doctor is programmed, literally programmed, to do and think and say one thing and nothing more and nothing less. Okay? If they want their employment position to stay intact. As they're killing themselves. Unless, of course, maybe there's something else and they can go without oxygen. I mean, there is that possibility in this day and age. Nothing is new under the sun. Technology can do amazing things, people. Seriously. Okay? Or they just settle for inept, unqualified doctors that can pose as doctors, be those actors to facilitate those people through the healthcare system as they're being trafficked over here into long-term care and locked up like dirty secrets, or they're being trafficked over here to be murdered and then have their organs harvested because they were depressed and didn't have the nerve to kill themselves by going out onto the streets and just simply buying a $5 bag of fucking dope that's laced with fentanyl. If anyone wants to kill themselves, it's not that hard, people. All you have to do is just go out 10 minutes away from your home. It doesn't matter where you live, and you're going to go find the fentanyl that you need to kill yourself with. And it's cheap. $5. Maybe get yourself a little $10 bag of, doesn't matter what the drug is. Just go, and you're dead. Okay? But I guess it's not happening fast enough for the government, right? Because they got all these fucking immigrants coming in. And they need to make way. Because they're not going to build affordable housing for the ones that are here right now. No, they're going to flush us out of our houses, people. And they're going to use the healthcare system with the corrupt healthcare workers and the ones that are so mentally deranged by the time that they're done, boom, 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 boom. Or they're so sick that they can't think clearly. Or they're so afraid that they have no balls, no backbone, no spine, no nothing. They're just bags of jellyfish that are just, right? And you just fall through the cracks. Unless you've got the resources to pack up and move the hell out of hell. Not everybody can move out of hell. So anyway, this David Eby is now the premier. And I have a lawsuit against his previous ministry, which is, I think, the Attorney General's office. I think he was the MLA for the Attorney General's office, and John, whatever his name is the public, John's, I just can't think, I didn't pull it up either, Farnsworth, John, I think his name's John Farnsworth. He's the public solicitor and Attorney General, okay? But the whole time I was doing that shit, you know, the only thing that the government was interested in was getting it thrown out by any means necessary with their cockeyed lies and their hiding of the truth and using their legislation to their benefit even though it was fraudulent. So whatever they're writing now and implementing most definitely is detrimental to the public, because the public will never be able to fight back to it when it comes knocking on their door. Like me, come knocking on my door. How many times do I have to file a fucking lawsuit to get justice, people? Right? Doesn't matter. There is no justice in British Columbia, Canada. And that's going to be the precedence for the fucking world. Because British Columbia, Canada is infested with something. Literally. Infested with something. And it's not something that's good. Okay? And, you know, these are all white people. And this is why I always bring up the Punjabis. You know, if I lived in Richmond around people that spoke Cantonese and were all Asian, I'd be talking about them because I'd be living and experiencing what's going on in that community. But I already live in a ethnical community that comes from a different country. So whatever's going on here, you know it's going on almost similar in nature in Richmond. Because people are people. And they're going to do what they want to do when they want to do it. And they're always going to take that inch and they're going to run for the mile. Okay? So they're bringing in shit under this C36 that is going to run out ethical doctors, ethical nurses, ethical medical technicians that don't want to be guinea pigs to any type of government conspiracy, agenda, program, or whatever. Okay? We'll call it what you want, right? And they're just going to leave. And you know what the government has been replacing them with? A whole bunch of unqualified immigrants that band together because they're waiting for their bonuses to be paid to them after they set up families to destroy them so that one can be plucked out and disappear and be hidden away like a dirty secret. Okay? They did it with Uncle John. They did it with Amari. They did it with Sierra. They did it with Shimei. And they're fucking with me. Okay? And they got Amari on lockdown for his whole life with individuals that have no mercy, because the government tells them, oh, right here in this legislation, it says if they're this, well, just get 2 doctors to jimmy the medical records and we're going to kill them and do them a favor, and then we're going to say that's what they wanted, and then we're going to move on to the next. Anybody with any ethics isn't going to do that, and that's why they're going to leave the province. Anyone who falls to that old okie dokie is, I don't know. There's too many words to draw on. Right? But we know that there's just something not right about that class of people. Because they will do it as a group. One can't do what the other one can do without both of them helping each other. And then you get the gang stalking through that process. Whether it's on a corporate level, on a freaking government union, public union sector level, or within the community itself, you know. So anyway, I'm listening to this. I'm trying not to get upset because I know there's nothing that I can do to change what they're talking about. They're trying to bring in a recall to get this guy out of here with the hope, okay, good luck hoping, because this is, you know, this is I don't know what we're up against. And, you know, maybe I should be thinking, well, I have been thinking about, I know Tisha wants to leave. She wants to leave the country. I want to leave the country. Okay, I told you, this is the new Congo. It's been the new Congo for a long time. Uncle John was just the tip of the iceberg. And now these politicians, you know, they're making it where, you know, you're just not going to have no rights. None. Absolutely none. They can come in and just fucking grab you and walk out the fucking door, and your loved ones will never see you again. How many times has that happened to me? Huh? Too many times to count, people. And this is what the government is protecting when they don't want to acknowledge that Eleanor Gilding is the leader of that freaking pack that does that kind of stuff. Because Eleanor Gilding works for the province and has worked for the province for a very, very, very long time, being the manager to their provincial immunization program for all their health workers within the healthcare system that's being paid by the government, not being paid by Fraser Health Authority, not being paid by Island Health Authority, not being paid by North fucking Atlantic Health Authority. They're being paid by the government. The Attorney General's office is in part the government. So is the Solicitor General and Attorney General, whatever the hell, is part of the government. They're the ones that cut the checks to each and every single healthcare worker in this province. So for them to say to me that they're not responsible for what's happened to my family because of medical tyranny, medical malfeasance, medical neglect, and so on, medical mischief, and so on, breach of trust, and so on, is hogwash. Hogwash. So, good luck. Good luck. You're just stalling for time. Because I doubt the Punjabis will stand up and fight against it. It will be just a whole bunch of little white people running around with their signs. Oh, they might get some Asians in there to sign. They might get some Punjabis in there to sign. They might get a few United Emirates and some, Muslim household to sign. But at the end of the day, people, no, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. I really don't. Because that organized religion has something to benefit from it. Because it's the Caucasians, mainly, with money who are being targeted within the healthcare system. And if it's not that, it's families like mine with the body parts. Because don't forget, there's that underground economy that props up the ones that write the legislation. And that's why they protect the Eleanor Gildings by any means necessary. Okay, that's exactly what's going on here. So, when I'm done doing whatever I'm freaking done around here, assuming that I can even see any more people, I will write another fucking lawsuit, and just for the principle of it, and I will remind the government that they are protecting Eleanor Gilding and her criminal activity because they want to keep the status quo. And that's why they bring in bills like Bill C-36, so that the Eleanor Gildings that roam our halls looking for the next fucking victims can have free reign and will never, ever, ever be held to account, and will have an unlimited access to a grunt freaking workforce that comes in from other countries that don't question the unethical activity that goes on because they're too busy standing back waiting for their fucking bonuses through their bribes. Okay? Sitting on the patient's bed as a group, plotting and scheming how to scare off the family so that the so-called sister can come in and pay them all each off for not standing up and doing the right thing. That's what you're up against. Go into any of these temporary care wards, and all you're going to find is immigrant workers with a few corrupt doctors running around in there, bossing them around to do as they're told. And if they don't fucking do it, get the hell out of here, and better yet, get the hell out of the freaking country. They don't want to leave the country. They want to stay in this country. So they will commit crime after crime after crime after crime because the government is building in legislation after legislation after legislation to protect those crimes. But when the people come back and hold the government to account to their own legislation, all they do is play mindfuckery. Mindfuckery. Nothing more, nothing less. As they attack your family, pick off another one here, pick off another one there, pick off another one there, until there's nothing left. Yeah, we know how it works, people. We know how it works.
going to get done.
So, but still, yeah, EB is the head of the snake, and he shouldn't be putting this through. I actually heard, I don't know if it's correct or not, this morning in the meeting that the Lib government didn't actually vote for this, the NDP did, correct?
Yeah,
that's true. But also
by turning, by turning away from this, we've got an impotent, response to it in our parliament, right? So the opposition is supposed to be, they should be, visibly fighting for the people. So we had a couple of MLAs kind of sort of speak out, sort of limp, but there are Liberals that were in favor of it. There were Greens that were in favor of it. All of these people are I think they're psychopaths, honestly. If you see something like that going on and you turn and look the other way and you think you're clean, no, they're all to blame, but there's some worse than others and some more prominent than others. So none of them are going to save us or advocate for us. They've made that perfectly clear.
by David Eby's own admission, it was a 5-year sort of plan. Now, you would think that if they want to massively change the healthcare system in British Columbia, would you not want the people behind you? And why in God's green apple did they not, every single MLA, whether they were NDP or Liberal, they should have had constituency town hall meetings to get the pulse of the people and say, this is why we're doing it. And if the people objected, that should not have been passed. He's a dictator, and he just wants it his way, because if he was any kind of a good leader, he would have said, well, wait a second, there's some pushback.
Just listen
here.
for a few minutes.
CTV's already alluded to that fact, but there's some big pushback, and we have to look at it, and we have to ask the people. And a good leader would do that and go back to the MLAs and say, listen, we're going to put this on hold because there is a lot of backlash. But he showed his true colors. He invoked closure. 236 out of 645 sections of Bill 36. What kind of a governance do we want? A good one or a bad one? And that's why we recall David Eby, an NDPer. He once helped the people in the downtown east side, and that's where I really liked him. But the Vancouver Point Grey riding was a stronghold of Liberals for over 30 years.
That's a very rich area.
Campbell reigned in there for at least 10.
Yeah.
No matter what he did in Hawaii, but he still was there. So it's a Liberal stronghold. There's very affluent people in there, and they're upset at him, not only for...
One of those smart cities that's real rich.
And here's their opportunity to put their time, their talents, and their treasure towards recalling David Eby, and to send a strong message, not to only British Columbia, the rest of Canada, and the whole world. We're not going to put up with this. We're doing it peacefully, and it's going to get done, and we are going to do it, and we're going to win.
James?
Yeah, Salvatore, thanks for bringing all that up. It's so important. But what we have to really remember here is that hardly anybody that I've spoke to really knows what's going on. And doesn't even realize that Bill 36 has even been put through
I didn't.
legislation. And that's half the battle. So we have also got a drafted document on our website, standunitedbc.ca. It is our website, it's our group, just so everybody knows. That being said, there's also 3 links to the mainstream medias, the CTV, the CBC, and the Global News. Now, what we really want to try to accomplish here, and everybody can
That's why I like listening to them once in a while, these women.
Or from your phone.
Even though they get on my nerves sometimes.
The mainstream media people. This is so important, and ask them to be at the rally.
It's so important for me, right? Because I'm forced. You see, that's the thing, people. I'm forced to have to go into the healthcare system because of Mamari. I don't have a choice. And obviously, you know, I'm in a really bad situation with my eyes. If I don't see an eye specialist regularly, like seriously, I could just like I woke up one day and everything was cloudy, well, I could wake up one day and everything could be black. It's that simple. Right? So it's not, you know, when you only got 2 fiber optic nerve slips on this side, assuming that I didn't kill one off with that, you know, honey, or 13 on this side, that doesn't leave you too much room for ease, right? So, you know, and like with these eye drops, like they're just, oh no, they're no good for me. I'm trying to do the best that I can. It's making me way too tired. It's giving me brain fog, you know, and my short-term memory is going on me, and like you see me stumbling more over words, and you know, I'm sleeping longer, which is unnecessary because, you know, I don't require it, but this stuff is like a sleeping pill or something, I don't know. And I don't like it. So, you know, I'm looking at surgery here, people. And with that surgery, you know, this poor guy, he has to wear a mask, you know, and like, you know, he's just, you know, I told you when I went with Amari the last time I went into, you know, the hospital there, like, these people are getting sick, okay? The ones with human DNA, that is. Maybe the ones with no, you know, they're spliced and diced, maybe they're okay. Maybe they like killing off their hippocampus because maybe they don't have one. But for the ones that actually, you know, have a physiological human body after, you know, a year or more of having to wear a mask for over 8 hours at a time, sometimes running through the hall or whatever it may be, right? You know what I'm saying? It's wearing their immune systems down. And if they're being forced to take in experimental inoculations, that is a hit and miss in terms of maybe some of them are saline, maybe some of them are not, you know, because it's all mixed matched and Mickey Moused around and just whatever to make it hard to follow the paper trail, I guess you could say. You know, bribes can be bought at any level. As a matter of fact, you know, when my water tank went, and, you know, my landlord had her work crew come by to replace the water tank, and there was that issue with a broken water tank. Anyway, I was talking to the young man that was working on it, and, you know, I told him to be careful and not to be so quick to jump up on that bandwagon to be a guinea pig to an experimental inoculation, and that he needed to do his research and all this blah blah blah, right? You know, he just basically, don't worry about it, I already got my saline shot. What does that tell you, people? I already got my saline shot. And being that he's Punjabi, I didn't question it. I believed him. Because there is definitely a two-tiered system going on out here in British Columbia, Canada, like other jurisdictions. Okay. Okay. So, hold on a minute. Okay, so I'm in the process of making some coffee here. So, to remind you here, okay, we already have legislation that will allow a person under investigation for murder, basically, identifying dead bodies as the RCMP adamantly prevent the family who's not even 5 feet standing outside in the rain after being kicked out by the coroner to identify their own loved one. But they will allow a suspect to murder identify Sierra's body through the legislation that they have that gives the RCMP that right. Okay? So they're investigating John Hart for the murder of Sierra Chorney as they prevent the family from identifying Sierra in a dead state to confirm that she's actually dead and saying, yes, that's Sierra Chorney, she's dead. So that the family can go on their way and wait for the results of the investigation in terms of, was Sierra murdered by John Hart or was she not? But no, they let John Hart identify Sierra, slammed the door in our face, kept us out as they protected John Hart as they were investigating him, to cover up the fact that they ran out of there with her body to a medical facility, the Abbotsford Hospital, to do their fake forensic investigation, so they had an excuse to cut her open and take her organs, sew her back up, throw her body back at me 19 days later so that I could finally identify it, okay? And told me to bury it to get rid of the evidence, but wouldn't allow me the opportunity to even have an independent autopsy from an independent doctor to confirm that her organs were still inside her body in a bag. Being that we don't have grave robbers out here, well, better yet, body snatchers. They don't even rob them in the grave. They rob them when they're alive or on their last breath, as in, oh, they're dead, but, you know, we'll just tell you they're not dead, and then we'll rush them to the hospital like they did with Shimei, and booked in their surgery 7 hours later and took out what they wanted, and then pumped her up with a bunch of fucking formaldehyde and tried to say that her water turned to blood when it was starting to leak out. Okay? And even then, it was a whole lot of fuckery within her medical files that was pointed out to Judge Ross, that whatever they tried to say in terms of me, denied organ donation is a bunch of fucking crock. There was no organs to donate, people, because they stole them. And because you can't get independent autopsies out here, the government just protected its ass with its corrupt workers as they're trafficking human body parts for whatever morbid reason, because there's more than one. So, with that said, what's going on here with this bill C-36 just makes it easier for the government to continue on with that type of illegal activity through their healthcare workers and any other worker that is employed by the Parliament buildings of British Columbia, Canada, as a whole government. Whether they're NDP or whether they're Liberal or whether they're Green, it doesn't matter. It's the government's responsibility with their MLAs to protect the public, and they're not doing it, people. They're not doing it, people. They're just making it easier for them to go in there and pluck out, and then not have to ever be held to account or to have the truth ever come to the surface. Because these people, for as good as their intentions are, I don't know who they are, you know, some of them, maybe not all of them, but some of them, or maybe all of them, sooner or later, the closer they get to their goal, the more successful they get to whatever it is that they're trying to do for the good of humanity, for the good of British Columbia, Canada, for the good of the children, for the good of the elderly, for the good of the young people, for the good of families, for the good of whatever good that they're trying to do. They're going to be targeted, and they're going to be targeted through their medical system, through their medical files. They're already talking about how the government can just come in and knock on the doctor's office and say, give me so-and-so's medical files. Doctor says, no, I can't because it's, you know, privacy, go through the freedom of information. No, they've written it into this, I guess, C-36, where the government can just say, no, give it to us now, because if you don't give this to us now, you're going to jail and you're going to be fined $200,000. Get the fuck out of this province, and while you do it, make sure you pay the bill before you leave. Okay? What doctor in his right mind going to want to stay in this province and provide quality health care where there is no breach of trust? Okay, under the Criminal Code of Canada, and have to do that for the rest of his life just so that he can go to move to, what, Point Grey with the rest of the rich fucks in that smart city? Or what, is that doctor going to go move to White Rock in that smart city and sit up there with those rich fucks after he's done what he's done, or she's done what she's done because the government told them so? As families like mine are always left wondering, is Sierra really in that tomb? Is Shimei's body really in that urn? No. No, they're not, people. No, they're not, because the government never made sure, the government ensured that I would never know, that I would never be able to seek the truth on my own by preventing, that's a big one, independent autopsies. Why are they trying to prevent doctors in British Columbia, Canada, from performing independent autopsies after they're released from the Abbotsford Hospital from a forensic autopsy that clearly the body was stuffed into the back of a fucking coroner's car and ran out of there like a bat out of hell as they were trying to figure out how to get rid of the family on the steps in the rain, so that they couldn't identify Sierra's body. but allowed some person, John Hart, under suspicion of murder to identify the body. This is what you're dealing with, especially in British Columbia, Canada. And this is why I tell you it's an infestation. These underground labs have been going on for far too long. If you want to pop out an egg and let it hatch to be the next dinner for these things, so be it. But I'd like to think that, you know, babies have a right to have a life and not just be a food source for a bunch of hawks and predators. Okay? That's what the legislation, when you start to read it and you apply it to the real world, what shows you that what's writing this legislation. Okay? So I don't take lightly what they're saying, because it's already there. Just like those smart cities, they're already there. They're just making it more secure for themselves. They're not making it safer or better for the public. They're just making it harder for the public to be able to fight back and to defend their families and to protect their families, their loved ones. Doesn't matter who they are. Okay? They're just making it so that the government can target the people like me that talk about this shit, or people like them that actually go out in the community and rally what they can, rally the ones that haven't been bought off yet, okay? Because the ones that have been bought off, that organized fucking religion that seems to think that it's gonna just be unscathed and is completely untouchable, well, you know, I'm just wondering how much in control that organized religion really is. Because some of these representatives in the Parliament building are robots. Let's just put it at that. They're fucking robots. Okay? They're sophisticated robots. Alright? That's why they're, you know, Merry Christmas. Yeah, we know. There was a glitch in there. Or was it those things that crawl around and every now and then just come out? And when they feed, people. They feed. Okay? Why do you think they need so many dead bodies? Because they're hungry, and there's too many of them, and that's why it becomes an infestation. Hold on a minute. Do you honestly think all these organs and whatever, you know, is all going into other people's bodies? No, people. It's a food source for something else, okay? Some of them, yeah, I could see maybe, you know, but for the numbers of death, and just what swirls around that death in terms of the body snatchers and the politics around it, and just, you know, right? They're doing something else with these body parts, okay? Some of it's a food source, some of it is a like I said, a bodysuit, right? Some of it they take out parts to put into a robot because, you know, right? If you zoom into somebody that has real teeth and then has a fake tooth, and you go into exposure, you can see it. You can see it, people. Right? So the more they can make things look real, to give that perception that it's real, the more successful they can be at deceiving you. Because that's what they do. They're worse than chameleons on the hunt. Okay? Yeah. So let's listen to them longer.
People will start asking questions.
They are already talking about the MAID euthanasia program, that there's a lot of heated debate. They're admitting it. The other thing about Bill 36 is it's not just about the pokes that the doctors can't speak out against. It's anything that the government narrative wants them to say they can't dispute to their patients, to the public. So that would include offing somebody who's 20 years old and depressed, they can't speak out, or they could get jail time and a $200,000 fine. This is a slippery slope that's already well past slippery. It's just dystopian. Yeah.
This is
They
gone.
they also own your medical records. You don't have personal medical records with your doctor anymore. They literally can just say, I want that guy's records, and they don't need a court order. They own your records. They can find out what your medications you're on, whether you've taken this or taken that, and they have to give it to them, or they're going to get those fines that you talked about. This is just no different than the boots showing up at your glass doors. When jackboots show up at your glass doors, it's too late to get mad. That's why we have to do this now, because nobody should own your medical records except you and your doctor, right? And also you can be assessed as mentally ill. If you don't agree with them, you'd have to go through some kind of psychiatric to maybe keep your license. This is just nuts. Like, I can't even believe we're talking about this stuff. Like, it's absolutely insane, but they don't see it that way. They think they're good people. I mean, that's what we're dealing with here, psychopaths, right? So,
And what
got to
if-
get on board. If you value your body or have any self-respect, get on board with this.
And what if we don't want to get too close? What happens if Sal gets sick and needs medical attention? Mr. Betro, have you had your pokes this month? It's none of your business. What do you mean it's none of your business? Well, I guess that means that you haven't been poked. Yes, I guess so. Well, you know that surgery you were due next week? I'm kind of thinking it ain't going to happen. So you got a choice. Liberty.
They're already doing that. They're already doing that against the law and constitution we have now. They're literally doing that to people.
It's called breach of trust.
I just wanted to say something too. I made a post the other day. It's very shadow banned by Facebook, but I did a little bit of research on David Eby. Not only is he a United Nations Award recipient, but he used to work
didn't
for
know
the
that.
BC Civil Liberties Association as the executive director here in BC, right?
I know.
He last year put out a statement that forced medical intervention is a treatment. So when we look at Bill 36, and like Sal was just saying there, if they deem you as mentally insane or mentally unfit, and they've got, and the province, as Rick was just saying, and the province,
And all they have to do is accuse you of something, and that's it. The game is on. They have bought themselves years to do whatever it is that they want to do. Obviously, time becomes their weapon as you become a target to derail you from holding them to account. That's what my videos have taught you.
has access to your records. They know how many you've had and how many you haven't, and what that forced medical intervention is going to be, because you no longer have autonomy over your body in this province, according to the provincial government. There are some hashtags that Rick has shared out there as well. David Eby is not my doctor. He's a lawyer, for crying out loud. And why is he telling us what has to go into our body? Who else?
I just wanted to say these tyrannical measures go so far as, Odessa, you said it yourself, 6 months in jail to speak out against the narrative. $200,000 fine. That's an instant muzzle.
Well, these doctors can't really speak out that much because they're dying people with being injured through lack of adequate oxygen over a long period of time. Okay? That's just a fact of being a living organism. Certain organisms require less oxygen, where other organisms, like human beings, require a certain amount of oxygen, and even if it's dropped down by a few decimal points, over a period of long time with this and whatever, I seen it when I was dealing with Amari. The workers are getting tired. Okay? They're getting sick. Some of them are even suddenly dying. As children are coming up behind them in the ranks and dying too. As our governments are Mickey Mousing around the issue. As they're bringing in more legislation to take away even more rights from families and individuals.
But then your medical privacy, Doctor-Patient Privacy Act, like Rick was saying, that's history. Your psychological status might depend on whatever treatment it is they want to give you, and you have your own reason not to want to take it. This is taking away the rights to your bodily autonomy. This bill, it's dangerous. It's more than a slippery slope. It's draconian. And the trick.
So when I listen to this stuff, I'm thinking, okay, you need to go out and buy some paper, and you need to go off and buy some ink, and you need to print it all out so you have it in black and white, and they can never say that you don't have it in word to word, right? So that if and when you ever want to use it when you write your next lawsuit, or if you take it back to the appeal with the one that you've got pending right now with the Attorney General's office and the Public Safety Solicitor Attorney General's office, you've got that legislation in black and white to draw on, okay? But the point is when you draw on it and you use it and you use it to your advantage, the government completely twists it around. They will ignore it. That's the biggest one. They will completely ignore it, start accusing you of this, accusing you of that under their fake law, fake case law, and then they'll have a judge that's already bought and paid for just dismiss it, as they basically mock you in a kind way, from a judge's perspective. That is, if they're not straight up mocking you. Right? So do I really want to go off and spend $100 on ink and paper just to print out that much more legislation? Where am I? Right? That much more legislation, so I could add in one more binder to all the binders of legislation that I already have? Right? After a while, you know, it's just another game. Time is their weapon, right? They know you're burning out. They know that you don't have the money. They know you don't have access to the lawyers. They know, right? So I understand why they're recalling EB, because that is the fastest method in order to bring the issue to the forefront versus trying to go through the courthouse, right? They already said that. But at the end of the day, I don't know.
Tyrannical policies that are involved with Bill 36 should scare the bejesus out of everybody, and that's more than enough reason for everybody. You know, when they...
I've been past scared the bejeebies, okay? I've been in the pit of hell already because of this government, people, okay?
Can come into a doctor's office and close the doors, and they can search through all of those patient files, doctor privilege files. You don't have any privacy anymore. And what they're coming for, we know why they're coming for it, because they want everybody to get on the program. And we know what the program is, right?
Yep. And made as well.
Yes, but it's going to be a two-tiered system where that smart community will have the parks and the peacocks, where this smart community won't even have a blackberry bush or an apple tree. Okay? In other words, no food in this community, but a whole bunch of food in that community. And because they're smart cities, somehow it makes it okay.
Amongst other things. Okay, but I still want to know, was it Adrian Dix or Farnsworth? Who is it that's
Farnsworth.
like, David, we have to do this, you got to put this through. Which one was it?
That's his name, Mike Farnsworth. He's the Public Safety Solicitor General. Okay? He's the one that's just sitting on his thumbs, not saying anything, letting the Attorney General's office via through Sonia 2 deal with me.
Adrian Dix, I would think.
Adrian Dix was the one.
I mean, he's probably been there the longest, so he was probably involved. We were having Zoom meetings long before COVID about this with healthcare people, but it was kind of like nobody was really interested in it. But there was a group that...
Yeah, why would you be interested in... Who cares if you can't get an independent autopsy in the province of British Columbia, Canada, from an independent doctor that is not hired out by the government? Who gets up in the morning and thinks about that stuff when they're just trying to live a normal life and be a productive, you know, happy, giving member in society? You know, right? You're not committing no crimes. You pay your bills, and you're trying to teach your kids moral ethics and from right and wrong, and you give back to the community. The last thing you're thinking about is, oh gee, can I get an independent autopsy from an independent doctor that's not completely paid off by the government, just in the event that I might need it? No, nobody thinks like that until it happens to them, people. You see, that's the thing. And that's how the government writes in this legislation. So that when it does happen to them, like it happened to me with Sierra and my family, you're hooped. You're hooped. And because our voices are so small, that information doesn't get out there. So everybody's sitting like a fucking duck unless they're the freaking predator. Plain and simple. And you got to ask yourself, again, who is the predator? Clearly it's the government with their government employees, public union sector as a whole, not each and every one of them, but it's being managed and massaged by the organized religion that is the dominant freaking class that lives in their own smart cities, that will sacrifice other smart cities so that they can continue to exist. Okay? And they do it by bringing in bills such as what they're talking about here. But most people aren't thinking about those independent autopsies because they're just more interested in getting their kids through college or their kids to school or their, their parents, situated where they're looked after or paying their own bills or whatever it may be. They're not thinking about death and having to take on the government to get the truth as to how their loved one died until it's too late. What these people are trying to warn you about. You got to do something about it now before it's too late. You don't want this legislation sitting in the Parliament building for another 5 more years so they can bring in more legislation to add on to that legislation, to add on to that legislation, to the point where it's just one big rigmarole and it means nothing, because when you take them to court and you hold them to account, it will still mean nothing. So before it becomes that, why not just get rid of it and nip it in the bud? And that's why they're trying to remove David Eby as premier of this province through recalling him. So in that, I support their effort, right? But it's not like I can go jump on a SkyTrain with Amari and Andre, go to Point Grey, one of those smart cities that's one of the richest cities in all of British Columbia, Canada, and go rally and help them out with this agenda. Because I can't. I can't. I was taken out a long time ago. I told you that.
That was aware of it, but Adrian goes quite far back. He's probably at the root start of this kind of stuff. Farnworth was there. Well, I mean, I wasn't in the, I can't say for sure where it could have spawned from a call from the UN. I don't know, right? But we know it's been in the works. They've been whittling away on it for years.
Yeah, since 2015 when they came with that framework. Okay, I don't know. It's around here somewhere. That one I did print out. That one I got me into trouble, and it got a YouTube video taken down because they didn't want me talking about the frameworks that were brought in 2015, and then they brought in another framework, which is like a form of legislation, mandate, that kind of thing, through some other organization that's outside of the country that's being brought in through the federal government and then infiltrated into the provincial governments, right? And now we're in 2022, and they're just adding on to the initial framework. Okay?
And that now's their opportunity. So they figure, wow, we did it. You know?
One thing
so
with Adrian,
here we are, and they've got people helping them. So
no, they got individuals helping them. Let's be clear about that.
One biggest question I have is, where has the opposition been to this bill? For God's sakes, at least 30 to 35 Liberal MLAs, where I have not seen them screaming at the top of the mountains, wait a second, folks, we're on your side, we're going to get behind.
I can tell you why that is, people, because when the BC Liberal government was in power, they came into power in 2001. By 2003, it was the BC Liberal government who illegally cut me off of welfare with 5 dependent children and threw me out to the streets in the middle of winter. Okay? That's the BC Liberal government, because they were coming in with their 5 great goals, and they were going to balance the budget. And they did that basically for about 16 years, just mistreated everybody that was below a certain income level so they could, you know, run with their balancing of the budget, had their Winter Olympic Games, and just whatever, right? And then along came the drugs and, you know, in terms of the methamphetamine, and of course then it went into the heroin and the methadone, and now we're into the fentanyl. All right, so the thing about the BC Liberal government is, you know, if you don't have a certain amount of income, they don't care about you. I don't know what that cap is. I mean, it could be $1 million sitting in the bank, free, free money, you know, with you pulling in $600,000 every year. Maybe, you know, maybe it's a little less. All I know is they run in with the ones with the money. Okay, so anybody below their expectations in terms of who's important, we all suffer the price, people. And the poorer you are, the worse it is. And the targeting gets even worse. Okay, so, you know, for them to be calling on the BC Liberal government to make a difference, well, I can tell you right now, once the BC Liberal government comes back into power, and they will, because that's how it works, right? Times are going to get rough for those below a certain income level, okay? If we think it's rough right now under the NDP, oh, it's going to get even harder when the BC Liberals get put back in, because they're the ones that really go after the poor people and corral us into, you know, herds, and then what, go in for the kill? Yeah, basically, because that's what you witnessed over the 16 years of my family since 2001 when they came into power. All right? And it started being documented online after my son Brooks opened up my YouTube channel in 2009. Okay? And I really started talking about it when they went after Sierra and Andre. And then I got even louder when they went after Uncle John. And then I even got louder when they went after Shimei. And I'm even louder now with what I know what happened to Amari. But you see, it wasn't enough for them. So then they went after Sierra. And they made sure that I'll never know what happened. But you see, the thing is, I already know what happened. Because I was outside that door, people. I had my camera on. I seen it. Okay, what, you know, believe half of what you hear. Well, they say, and none of what you see. Well, in this situation, I believe what I see because I was there and it's documented. Okay, even if they go back into my videos and try and tweak my video on fucking YouTube with their shenanigans, I've got the original copy. Okay, so, you know, they're just building in more means for them to cover their tracks when they go with the fishing net to scoop up on a whole bunch of poor people or those below a certain income that they don't see as fit to be, you know, deserving of anything. And they will by any means necessary cover up what they did, and they will use their government employees to do it. And because most people don't think about stuff like that when it does happen to them, like that guy said with the boots to the glass, they don't, good luck. Good luck keeping up. Good luck keeping up.
Nothing. Zero. Think about that, folks. They're not representing you. They want the NDP to fail so they can take over. Well, I got a good scenario for that one. They ain't going to.
And that's when the government will really go out of its way to try and bankrupt me for the 30th time. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
One of the other things that is happening here is that Adrian Dix, the all-powerful, is able to dictate to British Columbians and a medical professional what informed consent is. We don't even have that.
That's one more measure.
Scary.
That's one more measure of Bill 36, as well as they're amalgamizing our colleges down to 6 from 24. So you're not really going to have specialists in their fields dictating what's best for their patients anymore. And that way it's easier for them to control when they're they're electing who they want to make the policies for those professions.
It's going to be a hand-selected superintendent over the health in British Columbia.
Yeah, no one elected. In fact, guys, this is so whacked. American shows are talking about this.
We need
They're
that.
talking about Bill 36. They're talking about MAID and going, what the hell is going on in Canada? It's to the point where usually American shows, like whatever, they're actually asking me to come and interview with them to explain it because they're in shock, and they're now warning people, if we let the Dems go on the way they are, we're going to turn into this. I mean, it's so dystopian. Other countries are calling to ask about it.
Well, Odessa, you know what? I know you've been on Stu Peters several times. I asked Marcella to reach out to you. If we can have 5 minutes with Stu Peters, that would be really good for this event. He has a really large following. Maybe some people can turn some wheels and we can get the information out there a little bit.
Well, I did recently do a long interview with him about Bill 36, MAID, the recall, and all that stuff too.
That is good. Yeah, we need people to get off their bums and be at the rally and put them to work. This is not a me thing. This is a we thing, and this affects every single British Columbian the same way. It's very important.
Just on that note, Stand United, we will be having a tent. So like Rick was saying, that there's going to be selected areas to go where you can come in and collect those signatures. Stand United is also going to be doing that on different days. We're going to go down there with the people that have their card to be a canvasser through Elections BC. We're going to go down there and we're going to set up our booth into the community. And David Peavy's riding. If there are people that are watching and want to come down on the days that we're coming down, drop us a note here in the comments on this live and we'll connect with you. Go to our website. You can email us, standunitedbccanada@gmail.com, and let us know that you want to come down.
Here's your thought. Just hold on a minute.
Just drop a big announcement.
Okay, so we're going to fast forward. I'm going to end this video, people. I will provide the link to this video into the description box, okay? I pretty much said what I wanted to say, okay? I will continue listening to it. I think I got about another 20 minutes more or something. But I got to get on with what I'm doing, and I'm kind of depressed, right? And when I start hearing shit like this, it just brings that depression on even stronger, right? Because, you know, it's like, I don't want to say it's a hopeless battle, because you're in hell, right? And I've never been a bad person to have to be living in hell for the rest of my life. Never mind eternity, right? But for whatever reason, people with money, for the most part, have brought the world, the earth, to a state of hell, right? So, you know, in that aspect, it is a losing battle. Because, you know, how do you get the hell out of hell, right? You know, for some, the salvation comes in death, when they think they're going to go to heaven and pass through those pearly gates, right? And, you know, be like my grandma. Be up there and live in her little suite and be happy and have just the kids that she wants around her in terms of living in her house or whatever, right? Other than that, you know, that's it. That's where she's going to spend eternity. Because she took me there on the night she died. So I do believe there is an afterlife. There's no question about that. Just like my uncle came to me and shook me on my chest. I gotta go, you know. Yeah, okay, go. And then I got up in the morning and I got a phone call and I was told that he died. For whatever reason, he wanted to say goodbye to me, and he did. So, you know, there is a soul that goes somewhere, right? But while here on this earth, like, this stuff that we're... Like, if I would never have turned on Liberty Talk News, I would know nothing about this. I'm aware of MAID. You know, I'm aware of other legislation, only because I've had to seek it out. But now I'm learning that there's more legislation coming in to stack atop the other legislation, which allows the government to mix things up, throw in a few lies, omit a few things, have a few people come and stalk and attack and, you know, do whatever to derail so that you can't focus on what you need to focus on, just so that you can never get to the matter. That's what we're going to get a lot of, right? And most people just don't, you know, they're oblivious. They don't have the energy or the stamina or even understand why they need to fight against some of this legislation, because it hasn't happened to them. And if they hear that it happened to you, they think if they play their cards straight, it won't happen to them. Somehow they're protected because, you know, they didn't make bad choices and meet up with a Julian, for example. Anybody could be a Julian. There is no criteria to be somebody that wants to murder somebody else outside of it's doable. And if the person has that type of character and they can gain something from it, whatever that is, because people murder for multiple different reasons, they're going to do it, right? So they can't say, well, my boyfriend is better than her boyfriend, so therefore it would never happen to me, because nobody really knows until it happens. And then when it does happen, it's the aftermath of what happens when the cops show up and they try and cover up the murder. And they use the medical files to do it. And when you disagree and you take it to a courthouse, now you've got the government trying to cover it up. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, they're benefiting from the dead bodies, people. And for whatever reason, they're not satisfied with the numbers coming in with the fentanyl deaths, that they're now making it available for people just to sign up for it. It doesn't matter the excuse. As doctors are now being told that they can't speak out about it and that they should do as they're told. Right? Because if they don't, there's going to be penalties around it. Right? As the doctors themselves, many of them are getting sick. Unless, of course, there's something else behind the mask that you just can't see. So I live in a very dangerous province, people. One of the most dangerous places in the world. I've been saying it for a long, long time. So maybe my focus from this point forward should be, how the hell do I get out of fucking Canada? Because I'm not going to run to Alberta thinking that Alberta is going to save me, because all it's going to take is one election to start the whole process all over again with some bought and paid for politician that more than likely isn't even real in terms of with 100% human DNA that represents the constituency of Alberta. Right? It's very easy to change what? Idol? Is David Eby an idol? They're just going to change the idol. And if they bring in the Liberal government while they do it, all they've done is opened up the floodgates to have families like mine being attacked by the public union sector when the public union sector comes and starts cutting us off of welfare illegally under legislation that isn't even in effect. And even if it was, it wouldn't have applied to me. And then when you go back to the government and you bring it to their attention, they hold you to account for not going after and taking them to court to reinstate their own fucking bullshit. Right? Sonia too. Oh, well, you didn't take it to court when that happened. Well, how was I supposed to? I was too busy packing up my family from being in a house for 8 years, moving out into the freaking snowbank. I went from a 5-bedroom house that I had been in for 5 fucking years and built a playground in the back into a leaky freaking 2-bedroom freaking apartment in the middle of fucking winter with 5 fucking kids. With no money. Except my credit card. They knew I had my credit card. How the hell do you think my credit card racked up? As they misled me down the garden path, making me think I could do something good and grand with the foundation if I just hung in there long enough with all those poor little kids in that apartment building after I moved to another apartment, after I looked after their problem, their Gary and the mentally ill mother for 3.5 years just so I could live in a fucking shanty shack with the government still turning me away with my dependent kids as they exploited my 15-year-old drug-addicted daughter that became addicted within their public school system to methamphetamine because of the BC Liberal government being elected into 2001. By 2003, meth was all over this province. And a lot of people had their lives destroyed because of it. As the government is now going around cleaning up the mess that it made by making it so that parents who are losing their kids through that whole process can't even get an independent autopsy to confirm that their organs weren't sold on the black market from dirty fucking cops and healthcare workers. And suspects like John Hart, who are suspected of murder, but yet still have the right to identify Sierra Chorney, while the mother, Judy Chorney, was out on the porch being told that she couldn't. Think about it, people.